below the threshold. Skype solo right now, looking for a tag, and he does actually find it, and an elimination is a big point right there. 20 trios remaining to get close to placement points before too long.
Just looking at the feed, I saw Mitro still in the running here somewhere in the game, so that trio, top 5 trio, still in the running here. I think our number 1 team might have been completely wiped during that push right there, so they're out. They cannot accumulate any more points, but they did pick up a lot of eliminations, so you best believe they're still in the top 10 as far as we know right now. But it's so early. It's still so early.
There's a lot of opportunity here. We still have a number of games left. Camo, Harmy, and Pepper at the top of this, looks like 4 or 6 block tower. Stinger to apply pressure while the minigun is going. Love the EU tactics. You don't see too much minigun other regions right now, but this Tomo ammo does go down. Well, imagine that many rounds from a trio all shooting at your single build and you're by yourself. Basically GG at that point.
And this team here is also just heavy on the elims right now. An effective 7+ for the squad right here, and they have the prime position to catch the picks of anyone rotating from the backside. This is actually perfect too, right? The heavy congestion is below them. They don't have anyone up here in this layer with them. The closest person is this trio right here to their left, and it looks like it's time to get that focus fire on. Yep, here comes the minigun.
The mark for attacking right there, stink to apply and make a move. You use those HP tags that pop up, the 5, to see where your opponents are rotating. Now they're in literally the very bottom of the same builds. You have a ton of people stacked up next to each other at this point now. But Camo, Pepper, and Harmy look like they still have the ultimate high ground, the best spot on the map right now. That being said, they're on the far west of the current safe zone, and they need to rotate southeast. Hopefully, somebody's got a launch pad or shockwaves in the inventory to make this rotation. Otherwise, they're going to have to build across and tarp over everyone else underneath them. You do still see Benji, Fishy, Mongrel, and Mitro right there on your screen. They are still in this one. Looking down from almost the same angle. Here we go. Rotation with the launch pad. Well above the damage threshold for Storm Surge. Excellent spot. And 12 rockets in the RPG. They're going to build on pre-built structure over there. That somebody else put up, might even be their own builds.
And this is exactly what you want to study from this star trio right here. Zone 6, they go for the high ground. So they're actually going to take the high ground. He's going to catch 2 on the knock right there, which means that team is really hurting now. That's going to be Voron who gets taken out there. Voron was also in the top 5, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a power takedown right here. It's going to allow this trio to just get one step closer, kind of breaking away, getting, you know, Shio Wager, the mayonnaise tub to the face. So we'll see if it comes to fruition before the day's up.
Mitro staying a little bit towards the back, keep throwing down those RPGs at players that are rotating, or the builds to see if we can get drops on people. Mitro pick it up. There's those 2 elims in the feed, so he did secure both of them. That puts the entire trio at 6 total right now, 17 points. And we're looking at placement now, top 15 trios remaining. Only 29 players, though, as the elimination feed is starting to light up across the board. These are the zones that really cut the player count down as people are moving, especially when you have one of, if not the best trio on ultimate high ground with an RPG. Are you kidding me?
But
they are in the best spot.
Remember, it still hurts to hold high ground from zone 6 so early. They're going to be forced to jump down soon if they can't, you know, kind of map conserve properly. They're getting broken down consistently now by the shockwaves. These are one of the cons that happen when you take that high ground, because you don't get the pleasures of looting the players you drop, right? Just like that. All that loot's gone. They actually can't use it.
And every time you hear a shockwave, you'll see these players snap and look up in the air to see if they can try and find who's on the fly. In case you have free shots as that elimination is secured. Mitro picking up a knock on Falconly in the feed. Another one for the trio, 7 remaining. I've got to say, if this is not a win for this team, I don't know what is.
It's going to be a close one. Mongrel actually did not have any more AR left in his gun. There's no more RPG left here. It's a straight-up shotgun battle. This is a crucial elim. That's going to get them some of the resources that they need to hold this high ground here. And it looks like it's cutting back across. So lucky for them, they're going to be able to kind of reuse some of their resource here. We have a couple players left in the game here. Red Rush in the low ground. Shaka and Cal as well. And here's Mitro just raining fire. That tac sub SMG so good for shredding through builds right here. And honestly, it can pierce through the turbos like right there. These are the shots. Good pressure right here from Mitro, putting down the fire, putting all the ammunition to use here. We're almost in the final zone now. This is it. Storm Zone 9. The close-in will happen. Looks like Benji Fishy's going to go for that high ground. You saw him elevate himself right there. So he's going to get out of the harm's way of the shockwave, and Mitra's going to stay down here and just get down and dirty with the TAC SMG right now, Lupo.
You have to remember at the last set of placements here, the points really kick up as you go from 5th to 4th and 3rd to 2nd, and then the victory royale. So every time you see a player go down, like right there, the 4 trios remaining get even more points. As soon as one more trio goes down, we'll get it 1st and 2nd, and that's it. And we're down to the very last second here, the spray from above. This honestly, as soon as we got to top 40, this was Mongrel, Mitro, Benji Fishy, all the way to the end. No surprise here.
And a monstrous 12 Elim game right there. And you saw, even in the final moments, they did try to drop a couple of medium bullets there. But with that, we're going to send it over to the studio with Zeke and Sundown. What do you have for us, guys?
Oh, man. MMB starting off the day strong. We are one step closer to Shio eating an entire jar of mayonnaise.
It's escalated because he said cup, but we really didn't define cup. Some people was like, is this standard measuring cup? And someone was like, honestly, it should be a World Cup. I was actually just back in the kitchen looking to see if we could find any mayo. I'm going to have to make a run tomorrow because after that last game, it was just incredible. So that is 2 matches down in the heat. Let's take a look first at the standings and see where we're at after the first 2 games because, that's weird. Who's that up top?
This might as well just be Shio, eat mayonnaise.
I mean,
I think
so
it
the
reads.
one thing, and we saw they had a number of elims. They were in actually 4th place after the first match, but then the 12 elim plus the victory route, Zeke talking about it, every single one of those being a point, and then the victory route being 15 as well, pushing them up to 38. They're already 7 points clear of Falcony, Robabs, and the Vic, who've been playing very well. 19 elims there is pushing them 5 points clear of Amplify, Miro, and Matzo, who had an incredible first game. I mean, it's been an... Oh.
I just want to throw out a quick little apology. Based on score, I had assumed that because Matzoe, Miro, and Amplify had first place, that they had the Victory Royale. They, in fact, did not. So my apologies. All we were given was placement on the screen. That's my bad. Back to you.
We got to keep him honest, and we love him very much for it. But don't forget, the top 8 are moving on from this heat. So right now, you must be this tall to ride. So if we're looking at just top 8, the points, 18, that's just like a victory route is worth 15 points in and of itself. So even if you get that victory route with 3 eliminations, you can now look to strike up in the top 8. So, and we're only in 2nd game. We're about to head into game number 3. What does this spell for, like, all of these other teams?
Yeah, you just have to stay consistent. You have to not fear. If you have a couple of bad games, that's okay. If you're able to get in, get situated, get a couple of eliminations, get some placement points in there. As you can see right now, to be on the first page, it's 11 points up there. But one thing I do want to take a look at here is some of the gameplay that came out from Mongrel, Mitro, and Benji. They were able to play so well, and Lupo even hinted at it, saying at around, like, top 40 or so, you could kind of smell that they were going to have that victory out. It had the sense of, hey, they were going to get high ground. They had everything they needed. It's like, oh, this looks like it's going to be a win from them. Let's hop on in and see how they're able to execute and get this done. And one thing you'll note is when they are on high ground, they're so incredibly disciplined with their angles. They're constantly looking around, adjusting, putting rockets towards their opponents, and then keeping control, working with each other to make sure that they're finding the right targets. I mean, Mongrel's aim on people who are in the air, honestly, you'd think he's using a controller, the way these players just get beamed as they come through, but no, it is just his amazing bro. Just as Mitra would say, that's crazy. They are running it through 38 points up top. And again, always on the high ground. And for me, that's what's so impressive. In a meta where there's so many RPGs, so many shockwaves, the way they're able to not only get initial control, but then run the rest of the lobby without having to drop down and putting themselves in bad situations. They were never threatened. Count the number of times in this clip that bullets or anything are being shot back towards them. Everyone else is so focused on just trying to rotate and avoid damage from above that these guys don't have to do really anything in terms of defensive play, and they can just focus on going forward, and it seemed like it was just going to be a win. And honestly, I want to roll this all the way back to Xiaowei just be talking about the retail drop spot and how your early game sets you up for an advantage. They have so many tools at their disposal, from ammunition to rockets to excess shields to having enough mats because they had rotations early on to hold the high ground. It just makes it so easy and so clinical. And I promise, if you are a trio or you're just interested in competitive Fortnite and getting better, go and load up these guys' server replays. Watch them play. Check them out on their socials. You might want to actually mute their streams every now and then because they can get a little loud on the comms. Ballas does a great job breaking that one down. And let's actually take a look at page 2 of the standings because, as we talked about, in the Heat formats, the top 8 are going to advance. But just so you can get a hint, 5 elims right now is getting you up into that second page. There is 32 teams in each one of the Heats. You need to be in the top 25% in order to advance. In Europe, every single one of these guys is impressive, but they're all capable of stringing together a couple of good runs. You have 6 games. A third of them are down. You're now into kind of like the meat of it. In the next 2 games, you don't want to fall out early. So expect to see some intense battles early on and maybe a little bit more passive play kind of in the mid game because people don't want to get dropped out. You don't want it to be a third game and then fall out and realize, oh, we're that much more off the pace. Now we really need to be pressing forward. I think you'll start seeing aggression in games 5 and 6, but 3 and 4, they're going to be playing a little bit more like me. Hanging out, just being like, oh, there's people over there? No, I'm good.
So not like me, who does not even get to play. Got it. Yeah, we'll have to see how things go because, again, like Sunan's saying, you have to be top 8 if you want to move on to grand finals. So for a lot of these teams, I think we're going to see that, though. Maybe even some teams that are even on, say, page 3, they want to try and make top 8. So they might just say, look, we're going to contest MMB at retail. Let's just go for it. We have 6 games. Let's try it once. If it doesn't work out, we'll change up the plan. But I mean, I know that's tough, a tall order. I'm aware.
I wouldn't say so retail loot is strong, but there's a reason why you see the most dominant teams kind of staking their ground in retail because it's like, come and challenge us if you want, because if anything, that benefits us more. We're confident that we can take those early game fights with you. Like, if you want to split and try and do the blacktop houses, like, that's fine, but these guys will end up running at you. They will take the challenge because for them, like, they see 50 pots. They see points on the leaderboard. They see ways to climb this way up. No, it's serious. That's how MMB, that's how Volks and them, that's what they look at retail as. If you want to come there that confident, and the mental game is so important, particularly in a heat structure like this, where if you, in the first 2 games, if you are hanging around off this page, if you're not in direct contention, you might think, man, I'm struggling right now. Like, we really need to get into it. But in reality, you're able to string together 1 or 2 strong games, or even a victory royale right now would put you through, right? Yeah. And any of these guys are capable of winning one of these games. So I think they can do it, but it's all about keeping a strong mental game as you're going through.
It's tough, man. I mean, as much as I want to see Shy eat a jar of mayonnaise, it would be kind of cool to have a new trio come up and, dethrone MMB. I am about that, but it's just going to be a lot about mental game, like you're saying. If you start to just lose your confidence even just a little bit, that's going to affect your potential placement in top 8. We'll have to see, though. I'm getting a little too excited, Fortnite fam. I want to see more of this. But yeah, I think we're getting ready. Battle Bus, the players are boarding. We'll be there in just a moment. I think we have a package here in just a moment. But what do you think, man? So do you think, where is Aqua? Did we see him? Is he on page 1?
They're not in this heat. They're not in
this heat. I'm sorry.
It's different heats. It's
different heat.
This is just heat 1. So
which brings
again,
me to my
just
next
to remind
point.
people, is a little too excited here. There are 4 heats coming through in Europe. 8 teams will be advancing and going on. And the way you're able to kind of score and work your way up is through eliminations and placing higher up. Though in Europe, particularly, they have the highest amount of participation. So all of these players they are at the very tippy top, right? This is the top 0.001%. Right. These are the best of the best and the people who are very able to compete against these guys. So they're able to elevate their game on a particular day. However, as we're sitting here and able to have our own predictions, there's a reason we all think Mitro, Mongo, and Benji have done it. There are repeated trios who have shown they're consistently stronger and that much better than the rest. It's not like we're basing this off of who our favorite players are, right? It's going and looking at and breaking it down. But for now, we're going to throw to a 10-minute break while we sort some stuff out on our end. We'll go talk to the bus driver, try and get that going. You guys take your bio breaks, whatever you need. We'll be right back.
Hello Hello family of Fortnite, TW here, and throughout the Fortnite Champion Series, we're going to be trying to get more acquainted with the world of competitive Fortnite. Today, we're going to be discussing the 3 different stages of a competitive Fortnite game. The early game, the mid game, and the late game, and what different players have as their goals during these stages in order to achieve the ultimate goal, the Victory Royale. Let's start with the early game. Also called the looting phase, this is where all players are attempting to secure their chosen landing spot and maximize their loot potential. In competitive Fortnite, every game matters, so players try to strike a balance between high loot opportunity and safety so as to not waste a game by being eliminated early. Do you drop at a high loot POI like Retail Row or Paradise Palms? Or land at a safer POI on the edge of the map, where less players drop because of less loot. Regardless, the goal is common, whether you take a passive approach by looting safely on the side of the map, or an aggressive and risky approach by letting others loot for you and finding early elimination. Now that we know what the early game is, what should we be looking out for during this stage? First things first, being contested. The first realization players make when landing is whether you're being contested or not, to prepare for the upcoming possible fight. Trios want to try to force your opponent into the more disadvantageous position cut off from loot potential. Either they have to make a desperation push, or they're stuck with less loot where you can easily clean up. That's just the beginning, as even though it starts off high intensity with all the different POIs being contested, it quickly slows down as the rotations begin towards first zone. Looting doesn't end here, and most competitive players will have a loot path which optimizes their possibility for finding the crucial mobility and weapon upgrades. Thanks to the new battle map feature in the replay mode, we can study these loot paths and rotations quite easily these days. So go check that out in any replay from the Fortnite Champion Series by going into the Compete tab and finding your favorite player. It will vary from game to game, but generally, we move into the mid game around the middle to end of second zone. The mid game is the calm before the storm. Before the storm circle gets too small where it forces the engagements. Most players' goals aren't positional, but in some cases, depending on how the early game went, you again have to strike a balance, this time between looting and farming, or going for the best position. Looting could include playing extremely aggressive to earn yourself other players' loot. In trios, it's much harder to play that aggressive playstyle, since fights take longer and cost more. You want to be efficient with any rotations or fights you have to take. You don't want to spend your precious mobility, valuable resources, or health. This is why you'll see a lot of the top players look directly for center zone in the mid game. When you're in the center zone, you end up giving yourself the most chance of being in the next storm circle when it gets revealed. You'll then have to go less distance and thus spend less materials. Finally, the end game, the most exciting, hectic, thrilling, and difficult part of competitive Fortnite. Experiencing an endgame can be confusing and hard to process, but it will also be one of the most rewarding and fun times to play and watch. This is when you take all the advantages you built in the early game and the mid game and use them to push yourself to a victory royale, and also find as many eliminations as possible. In the current Fortnite Champion Series format, every elimination matters, just like it did in the World Cup. From 6th zone onwards, where the calm from the mid-game explodes into a cacophony of tunneling, mobility usage, and shots being fired, you'll see teams go for the ever-so advantageous high ground, where they can tunnel very cheaply and have the most opportunity on the rest of the server for elimination, as they have the top-down view. You'll also see teams call out the need to find a good layer, which is away from other players, both above, below, and horizontally from you. You'll see teams desperate for the extra materials to last them through to the full zone closure, going for impact eliminations, where they can top off on resources and power weaponry of their fallen opponents. So, whether you're watching or you're joining us on the field, take stock in the stage of the game. The early game, when you're trying to get the best possible loot while it's still available. The mid game, where you're balancing positioning while maintaining what you built during the early game. And finally, the end game, where you spend all the advantages you set yourself up with to earn the victory royale. Use this to form your game plan in order to earn as many series points weekend after weekend. And maybe next time, we'll be watching and highlighting your top plays. This was TW, and I'll see you in game.
Hey guys, Shadow Wager here, bringing you a breakdown on one of the most dynamic, flexible, and clutch items every trio is utilizing in the Fortnite Champion Series, the Shockwave Grenade. We're going to be taking a look at some of the basics on how it's used and misused at crucial moments in the game, and how to adapt and play against them towards the end game. To get started, let's get a refresher on what shockwaves are and some of the basics of using them. Shockwave grenades are a utility item that drop in stacks of 2, with a maximum stack size of 6. When thrown, the shockwave launches anyone within its tile-and-a-half radius far distances, destroying builds in the process, with the added protection from fall damage for the players who use them. The most effective way to gain maximum distance is to time your jump well with a shockwave right below you, angling yourself above it for higher vertical movement, or towards the side of it in midair for horizontal coverage. If you do use a shockwave to rotate through builds late game, you will only be able to go through about 5 layers of wood, brick, or metal before you come to a stop. When going for height, if you don't get stopped by any opposing player's builds at all, you can reach upwards of 7.5 tiles in height, giving anyone above you a surprise and changing both yours and your enemy's game plan in a split second. Although really easy to understand and use individually, once entering the atmosphere of trios and teamwork, the use of shockwaves enters a whole new dimension. There are deciding factors in win conditions if used properly, allowing for easy positioning and rotations. Using them and sticking together after the landing is efficient and gets your whole trio online, ready to fire at a faster rate compared to the rest of the competition. Saving these grenades for later use brings an element of surprise as well, and a level of shock to the whole server. Looking at 8th and 9th zones with densely packed endgames, vertical shockwaves make high ground and mid ground layers crumble, and give patient trios and surviving solos a way to counter long tarps and bases towering above them. Facing off against 3 players usually proves fatal though, as you are vulnerable throughout your whole flight and easily targeted by the trio you're trying to attack. Turbo building walls on the way up from your shockwave can work against this though, but gives your newfound height poor foundation, easily shot out and focused from below. Panicking with shockwaves in your own box and misusing them is always an irreversible mistake during the game, giving you poor positioning split away from your trio, costing you building resources, or ultimately you and your teammates their entire health and shield pool if used at the absolute incorrect moment. To counteract the chaos from shockwaves, new and clean strategies are put in place to negate the negatives and potential mishaps in certain situations. When going for height, separately using shockwave grenades as a trio separates the good players from the great. And practicing, reviewing, and watching how plays are set up before they happen is a good way to keep in the loop, improve on mistakes, and get better retakes on height when using one of the most versatile items in the game. Keep your team's position in mind while breaking, jumping, and blasting into the air until you get it just right. And who knows, maybe you can have that top play or amazing clutch that saves your team while competing in the FNCS.
European matches flushing, but there's been a ton of Fortnite action going on with East wrapping up their first and second heat, so we have the final result. We're going to hold the action as well. Our predictions for Middle East are looking pretty good. I know Z kind of hinted at it, but you can check out on the FX Twitter and also on the YouTube some of our prediction and our preview piece we were able to go through, and we talked about what some of our predictions, particularly in the Middle East and European region, are. So make sure you get up to date on that, get what our thoughts and opinions are. But we're going to be hopping into Heat 2 match 1 of the Middle East region in just a second here. And honestly, I'm excited. It's going to be the first time seeing Middle East in outside of the open tournament format and seeing the top teams really go at it. Steady, and it's going to be exciting once we get in. There is a different style of play, different types of gameplay from all over the regions, but enough from me. I've talked enough. Let's throw it on over to Lupo and Monster as they take you into Middle East Heat 2 match 1.
Sundown, thank you very much. Just a quick note to those at home. Occasionally we run into issues on the cast. Do your best to not get too worked up about it. You know, there's a lot of things at play here, so you have to imagine a 10-minute break is time to recover and get back into the games. As you can see here on your screen, Heat 2 Game 1 of the Middle East region just starting off. Tilted Town, a number of teams dropping down the bottom. Down here, pressure in the bottom and the pump shotgun.